Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders to help it grow. Lance, good to see you. We got a green screen on you, but we're not quite. We're working on our backgrounds. We're high-level discussions. Mine's working today. Katie, good to see you as always. Katie, you get to think about what we're going to have. Then, hey, there's the certificates. A ton of questions. We're going to get right into the content.
Bob, I feel like a target, and they're taking target practice.
Well, you want to start? We'll do this. Lance, you want to do your Maya culpa first, or do you want to do that?
I would love to, Bob.
Do your Maya culpa.
After a couple of questions and digging deeper into the IFRs, I misspoke yesterday on the webinar in regards to the loan amount calculations on NAICS code 72. I thought it made common sense that the NAICS code 72 would in fact get 3.5 times payroll on both the first draw and the second draw loan. It just made sense to me. And look past that, but in fact, when you go to the 2483, which is the borrower's application form for first draw loans, it does not give the opportunity for 3.5 times payroll for NAICS code 72. And if you dig in the IFRs, that is in fact the case. The 3.5 times payroll for the NAICS code 72 is only on second draw loans, and that is supported with the SBA form 2483 SD. So Lance, my mistake, guys. I'm sorry. It made good common sense to me, Bob, but it was not perfectly accurate.
I think we can. You're allowed one every now and then. Also, Lance, it's exciting. What we're going to do is we're going to put together a program for the borrower on 72 NAISC codes. We're going to get that out in the next couple of weeks that all your borrowers can take advantage of as well. So we're branching out a little bit. I think this is our first webinar we're doing directly for the applicants, right, Lance?
Yes, and I think it's important, and I think it is a service to our participant lenders to educate a particular segment of borrowers about the PPP loan, what eligibility requirements are, how do you calculate payroll, what kind of documentation you need to get together. So when we release this, encourage your hospitality and restaurant businesses to participate.
Yeah, I think what we'll end up doing, Lance, is we'll sell it directly to the borrowers, or if you want, you can buy a single license. You can send it to whoever you want. So we'll work that out. Hey,
Bob, and this would be a great service on the part of the participant lenders.
Right.
Just socially distance, but invite a couple of hospitality businesses into your conference room and let them watch. Get an unlimited license.
Reason why we brought this up, Katie, bringing you into the conversation is SBA's released some numbers. Katie, what percentage of PPP loans under 50 grand have been forgiven?
The SBA has received 1.3 million forgiveness applications so far. And of those loans that are under $50,000, they just released the numbers for that, and they said it's about 88% have been approved for forgiveness. So I think anybody who said 80 or 90, that's right in between there. So those people would be correct.
So that's nice. Go ahead, Lance.
The thing that's interesting, Bob, is when they release the simplified forgiveness for 150K and under, can you imagine the number of forgiveness applications that are suddenly going to flood participant lenders and absolutely flood SBA?
No, which is fine, which is the intent is let's keep our eye on the ball. We want to get money to Main Street, and we don't want to bog people down with paperwork. We want them to figure out how to manage during this pandemic and manage their employees. Poll question number 2, and we should have probably been more specific on this as well. We'll bring it up. Number 2. There we go. When we say what percentage of overall PPP loans have been forgiven, Katie, what we're really referring to also is what percentage have applied for forgiveness, correct?
Well, we know, unfortunately, we don't know the exact amount that have applied. This is really
Okay.
just the ones that SBA has approved. So
Okay.
actually the other way around. It's the ones that, of the ones that the SBA has received, how many have been approved?
Lance, what do you think? We're going to let Lance go first. and then
I'm going to guess probably around 75%, Bob, of
You're
those
wrong.
that have been submitted.
Well, we'll give. What do you think, Katie? Should we give it to him or not?
Well, I mean, he's pretty close, but it's 85 actually, which is a little higher than I actually expected. But, you know, like we've been saying, especially those smaller loans haven't really been submitted as much at this point. I think a lot of people were waiting for that simplified forgiveness form to come out. So now that that form is going to be probably released, I would assume next week or, yeah, probably about next week. I imagine this number of loans that the SBA receives is going to be a lot more than they can handle, and that number might go down a little bit.
Well, but tip of the cap to SBA, Lance.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are nice numbers. Good for them.
Well, and I think that's something important to remember when you're talking to your SBA district office employees. Just remind them that you appreciate everything SBA is doing because, you know, SBA staff did not balloon 100% as a result of PPP, but the workload, I don't know what the increase was, but it was dramatic, and they are handling
when you're releasing regulations on Sunday, you know, they're putting in a lot of overtime hours. Number 3. Are you familiar with the new employer tax credit retention provision? Yeah, I wasn't that familiar with it either. 83% does not shock me, Lance.
I'll be in the know. I'll be in the know as well, Bob.
Very quickly, just quick summary is there was retention for first round, but if you got a PPP loan, you were not ineligible. The reason why I asked this question is you can get a second draw PPP loan and do the tax credit. So that's a huge change. The tax credit is basically for the IRS. You have to show a reduction of 20% in revenues, not 25%, and you get $1,000 per employee. And that's directly when you file your payroll taxes. So you may want to mention that to your borrowers that unlike PPP 1.0, PPP 2.0 does not exclude that provision. That can be significant, Lance. Not significant, but it'll be nice.
Absolutely. You know, we are doing a lot for small business, although I read an article today, Bob, that said the new PPP is not enough.
And I put me in that category. I agree with that. Katie, SBA had a call yesterday. Anything that we need to know about?
Just to get everybody up to date on what the SBA is currently working on. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get on the Connect call, but I did look through the PowerPoint this morning and pull out all the things that they're working on. They're still working on that simplified forgiveness application for loans under $150,000. That's in development right now and should be coming out probably next week. Debt relief assistance. The SBA is currently determining how much assistance may be offered. We'll probably get an update on how that will be handled in later this week or early next week. SBA forms 1919 and 1920, which were released on October 1st, 2020, have some functionality fixes that are in progress. They are working on that. And SOP 50.10.6 has some tech updates. Those have been delayed, I'm assuming because of PPP, but they are still working on those as well.
The 1919 and the 1920, the new ones, they don't work. There's some sections of it that don't work properly. So I'm excited to see them fixing that.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Let's go to questions here, and we'll spend the rest of the time that we have for that. Number 1, Russell, is the SBA platform used for second draw PPP loans the same portal that is used for forgiveness? Good question.
Yes, it is. It's you're not doing your new round of PPP and E-Tran. You're going to do it in what we know is the PPP forgiveness portal. and you'll be able to do your originations via that portal.
But we do know, Lance, you're not going to get an automatic number. There's going to be some...
Although, Bob, one thing that we talked about yesterday, and I'll talk about it briefly here, the increases of existing PPP loans are done in E-Tran, just like a servicing increase. So that, in fact, is done in E-Tran if you're doing an increase on a PPP loan.
Lance, we've had questions on this, and there's still basically what documents does the borrower need to provide showing the reduction in revenues to the lender? Let's start with that.
Basically, financial statements could be compiled, could be audited, could be QuickBooks, bank account information, but that's going to be a harder one to vet out. But bank account information could be used, or tax returns. It's important to note that on the second draw loans under 150, the borrower does not have to submit that information with their application, but they do have to submit it with the forgiveness application. The borrowers over 150 have to submit appropriate documents to prove the 25% revenue reduction.
And Lance, and for that, let's say we're talking first draw PPP, and it's $100,000 loan under the 150 threshold, do they need to provide to the lender employer information?
If it's a first draw loan, they are going to have to provide proof of payroll. First draw loans don't have to have the 25% revenue reduction.
Right.
But the first draw loans are just like the first round of PPP. They're going to have to submit appropriate payroll information to support their application.
And then when the documentation is forgiven is when they go in for forgiveness, where they say, yeah, I've certified everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky wants to know, when are they going to change the 3508S form to include all loans under 150? Katie, when are they going to change the form? So throw that one to you.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to have a separate form altogether. It's, the S might still exist, but I don't think that one's going to be nearly as popular for people who can fill out that single page. That's probably what they're going to all do.
Denise asked a great question. Say, hey, we got the maximum amount of first round of $2 million. Actually, the maximum amount was $10 million. Are they ineligible for additional funds?
If they got, so you're saying they got 10 million in the first go round?
Yeah, right. But that was the max, right? 10 million?
Yeah, my understanding is that, and this is one where I could be wrong, Bob. If they got the maximum amount in the first round, they should be eligible for a second draw loan.
I would go out on a limb with you on that. I haven't read anything that
says they're not.
Yeah. Katie, have you picked anything up like that?
No, I think as long as, obviously they have to have used their first draw or be planning on using it before disbursement. But other than that, I think as long as they have done that, they're probably going to be eligible for that second draw, and they can get the maximum that they're eligible for again.
Well, and this question says if they got $2 million in the first round, would they be eligible for additional funds? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, this one, yeah, because the max was 10 million, correct? Just make sure okay. Jim wants to know, we have a restaurant we approved prior to September 27th, so I assume that had to be PPP1, but is not yet funded the money to the borrower. We have 6 months worth of CARE Act payments. Is the borrower eligible for additional 5 months? We're not going to touch this one until we have guidance, right, Lance?
No, we need some more guidance. Now, Jim, if you'd like to know my guesstimate, my guesstimate is yes, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, we're not going to, that's going to come out. Katie, when do you?
Because this is an interesting one, Bob. It's a restaurant. It was funded prior to September 30, so they're going to get 6 months worth of CARES Act payments. So, and again, we need the guidance. Technically, they would be eligible again for another 8 months worth of payments, but I don't know that SBA is going to let you piggyback 6 and then 8, but they might.
Yeah, and I may have confused the issue. I said PPP. Jim was probably referring to a traditional 7A
Yeah,
loan.
this is a traditional 7A loan to a restaurant before September 30. They're going to get, Bob, once it fully funds, 6 months worth of payments under the original CARES Act. But I think Jim's question is, will they get additional payments as a result of the new bill? This is a tough one. We'll need guidance, Jim. I would think maybe. I certainly wouldn't tell the borrower that because they've got 6 coming anyway, but there is a chance. We just need to get SBA's guidance. And we should have that in the next week.
Yeah, Katie, when do you see that guidance hitting?
The SBA doesn't really have as strict of a date on this one, but they did say something, I believe, Monday that they were planning on releasing this guidance soon. So I don't know what soon means, but I would expect they're working on that right now.
Well, and the part that makes it hard, Bob, to give a definitive answer on this, SBA is already saying that they're interpreting the bill to determine the amount of relief under the payment relief. So, yeah, initially it said 3 months and then 5 additional months in some categories. We may end up with 6 months for everybody. Who knows?
Sandy wants to know, when does the covered period begin if a borrower gets an increase in their first PPP loan?
That's really interesting. I would assume if it's like the regulations in the initial round when the loan disperses, the first payroll period after the loan disperses.
Carrie wants to know, we've had this question before. Basically, we have a borrower who purchased a business after that February 15th date, but it was in existence, obviously. Are they eligible for a PPP loan, even though it's a different ownership?
My general inclination is no. We may get some other guidance, but the business entity is the borrower on the PPP loan. And the business entity that purchased the business was not in existence on February 15th, 2020. So I don't see how they're going to certify that they were in business as of February 15th, 2020.
These are questions that have just come in today. Katie, you may know this one. Peter wants to know, has any PPP loan over $2 million been forgiven? I think the answer on that is...
I haven't really heard much about it recently. I would imagine most of those are probably been held over. There have been some rumors. I think we did a poll quite a while ago, maybe a month ago.
Joseph, let's do that poll tomorrow. Let's find out if anybody
people who said that they had. So it's very possible that some have, but I don't think a large amount have.
Vicky is correcting me on the employer retention credit. It's $7,000 per employee, not $1,000 per employee. So
it all of a sudden becomes better. Thank you, Vicky.
Yeah, thank you, Vicky. Appreciate that. Like I said, I heard about this yesterday, and I knew that most of us didn't know about that. Jared wants to know, if a customer has a Schedule C and a Schedule F, can we combine these for one loan as a sole proprietor?
But it's 2 separate businesses, right?
I would assume we have a Schedule C and then we have a Schedule F for farm.
It'd be like if you had a retail business, but you also had a farm.
Yeah, let's assume that, yeah.
My assumption would be that each entity could apply for its own PPP loan.
I agree, and we shouldn't have any affiliation issues or dollar amount limits.
No.
Joe, I think we answered your question. Documentation, Lance said interim financial statements are fine. The rules are pretty lax in terms of what we need, but we know bank statements are financial statements. That's the generic one. I threw out there, and I think Lance concurred, I would feel comfortable with a letter from the CPA detailing all the numbers for perhaps your unsophisticated clients, as long as all the numbers were in that letter, right? Would you feel comfortable?
Well, especially if it's a small
a small cash grocery store type.
I would not touch that one on a $2 million.
Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely not. Again, the question is, how do we calculate income on a Schedule C?
You're going to take net profit from the Schedule C, divide it by 12, and multiply by 2.5.
And Dickey they have a borrower who doesn't do quarterly financials. So what do? We have the Schedule C for 2019. We don't have quarterly financials, and we don't have the Schedule C for 2020. What do we do?
I think you could use an interim 12/31/2020 financial.
And
I think
we can also use bank statements.
Yes, yes.
That may be the way to go, just get their bank statements. We had a question the other day, can you take things out? Of course, but at some point in time, have them convert that bank statement to a
Well, here's a challenge, Bob. So many small businesses that get PPP loans do not do monthly or quarterly financials. They do a tax return once a year. So there will be circumstances where they will have to be somewhat creative in getting the appropriate documentation.
Marty asked a great question. I have a borrower who owns the business, but they also own the property under a different LLC. Do we have to combine those revenues, or can I just take the revenues off the business that's being leased by the LLC?
So he's got a business, but the
He owns
property
the building as well.
under a EPC.
LLC.
Well, what I'm saying is if he owns the building, it's an EPC OC
I'm sorry.
situation.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
just apply for the PPP loan under the operating company.
Right. But he's saying, but do I have to worry about the revenues on that, on the lease income? The answer is no. It's a separate.
No, they're not applying.
Yeah.
They're not the applicant.
Sharon asked a great question. Does the lender need to check sam.gov for borrower, owner, and lender prior to submitting?
And this is a big question, Bob, because it's not completely clear. Most of us that are existing participant lenders, you run a SAM report on new employees when they join the institution and work in the GGL department. If your institution has never done a SAM report on the individuals that work on or government guaranteed lending or SBA lending, then that's going to have to be done. The regulation says it has to be done within 30 days of the first disbursement of a PPP loan that your institution does. Now, most banks have already done it. But in terms of running a SAM report on the individual borrowers, I have not seen anything that requires that. But
yeah, I think that would fall into prudent lending. Gang, I'm going to take 2 more minutes. I got about 5 or 6 more questions. So let's just go and blow them out. They're all good questions. Michelle wants to know, clarify the maximum amount of the second draw PPP loan.
$2 million.
Olga, how long are we expecting SBA will take to provide a number back to us? Great question.
I suspect that that's going to be almost, unless there's problems, it should be like it was with the E-Tran. As soon as you submit it, you had a loan number. But I may be wrong.
Brad wants to know, we've been told the maximum guarantee has not been changed from $3.75 million for 7A loans. Therefore, we cannot get a 90% guarantee on a $5 million loan. Is SBA going to fix that? Are they going to increase that? That's an administrator.
That's correct at this point. I
think it'll change.
I do think SBA will address it, but guys, they've got to get PPP launched. They've got to get the forgiveness process fixed. They've got to get the live venue grant program rolling. So I suspect that fix may come a little further down the road. Now, I'm not saying it's going to come in April or May. I'm saying it could be February before we see it.
Abigail is clarifying, is the salary cap still $100,000 per person in second draw PPP loans? The answer is yes. Bridget, you asked a question on funding again. I'm going to hold off on that until we get the final regs. We're all over the board on that. And so Corey just wants to clarify, and we'll finish up with this statement on the Schedule C's and Schedules F. We can use the net profit for calculating the 2.5 employee compensation. Yeah. Very good. Okay, Lance, good job as always. Katie, good job. I think we blew through a bunch of, and I got a ton more. So
guys, we did a webinar yesterday, and I spent a better part of 40 minutes answering questions. And
in fact, you had to cry uncle. I got to go.
Yeah, I told Bob in the webinar yesterday, just for a quick story, I had done the webinar, answered questions, and my voice was leaving me, and I'd ran out of water up here. And I told Bob, just a couple more questions, and I got to go.
Well, very good. Well, thank you all for that. Thank you for your questions. We respect your time. Obviously, unless we have breaking news Thursday and Friday, we're just going to deal with questions on this as well. And we'll finalize our webinars. By the way, for those of you who attended the webinar yesterday, we are going to do a repeat on Thursday, January 21st. And all of you are free to attend that. We're not going to charge you for that. Or if you have the unlimited site license, you can get other people from your bank to do that. And you don't have to do anything. You're automatically signed up for that. So very good, Lance. Thank you. Good to see you. And then we need to have Michael. We have to solve our green screen problems. Look a little bit better. Katie, good to see you. And thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great afternoon.
Have a great day.